I've got a new sculpture project I'm excited to share with you. It's a commission for a couple I'm friends with. It's actually going to be a birthday present from one to the other. We got to talking, and I found out that this friend really likes mobiles. Well, let me back up for a minute. They came and visited my studio the other week, and they saw the prototype of another sculpture I'm working on built with springs, and they liked that too. So now the idea for this sculpture is going to be like a mobile, but with the addition of springs. It'll hang from the ceiling, it'll have rods with plates that pivot and swing, but somehow the rods are going to be interconnected so that when you push and pull one, it sets up this wave that propagates throughout the whole sculpture. So I got to thinking, and the concept I came up with is of a ring. Take a look. Each rod is attached to the central hoop, and where it's attached, it can pivot freely. And the rods are all connected to their neighbors, the nearest neighbor to the left and to the right. And so you have this loop of springs going around. And the reason why you only need springs on the inside, as opposed to just on the outside, or both the inside and the outside, is that that's sufficient to pull the rods back into their neutral position when the sculpture is at rest. Each rod will return to its perpendicular alignment. Here's what the sculpture might look like when hung from the ceiling. So I don't know yet exactly what the rods are going to look like or what the plates on the ends are going to be, but I think the idea so far has merit. And I've got the thumbs up from the customer. So here goes. So I've got the first prototype built. Here it is. I've also constructed a model ceiling that I've hung it from, which is going to help me to access it easily and to be able to see exactly how it's going to be hung in the customer's home. It's still a little rough, but I think it's a good start. So this prototype has the central ring hung from the ceiling in 3 positions. My thinking being to try to stabilize the ring and keep it from moving around wildly so that you can emphasize the movement of the rods. Each rod is connected with a simple hook to the ring and a little extender arm. Allows it to pivot freely up, down, left, and right, and counterbalanced weight on the back and the front. And each rod is connected to the left and to the right with a spring. So here in this prototype there's 6 springs and 6 rods. And for this initial construction, the springs are simply attached to the very ends of the rods. So there's a lot of force that the springs exert to pull the rods back to the neutral position. They behave nicely, but I still think there's room for improvement. For example, I can get them all rocking up and down together, but if I want to get one of them going independently, that motion doesn't last very long. I think I'm going to have to relocate the attachment points of the springs to be closer to the ring so that they have a little bit less leverage on each of the rods. Alright, I'm going to do a little revision on the prototype. Okay, so what I've got here is basically just a coil of wire hooked around the hoop. And I made the coil on something that's a little bit smaller diameter than this rod so that when I slide it on, it has a good bit of resistance and doesn't want to slide one way or another. Okay, take these rods away. Here's what I've got next. I thought that I can reuse these springs, which are a little bit short, by adding extensions on either side of the rod here, so that one rod is going to reach out to the next rod. And you can see it a little better over the white paper here. So part of my thinking with these rods was to reuse the existing springs here. And of course the springs don't reach if we're going to move them from the ends of the rods closer to where the rods connect to the hoop. If I want to reuse these springs, then I'm going to need some sort of extension. So that's what I have here, clamped onto the shaft of the rod, or a little piece of wire with arms that stretch out on either side. Okay, got the arms on. Each one is pretty nicely balanced and free to rotate. Now let's connect them with springs. Okay, got it assembled. Hey, that's a lot better. It's looking good. Ooh, that's much more lively. Okay, so I've got this second prototype put together, and it's a lot more lively. I like the fact that the springs are connected much closer to the pivot point, so they have less leverage. I've discovered this surprising behavior, this surprising effect, and that is you get this great motion if you manipulate the ring. So I think I'd like to change my mind and no longer try to fix the ring rigidly to the ceiling, but somehow enable it to pivot freely. I'm going to hang the whole thing from a single hook in the center. And that way allow it to swing. The customer's only going to have to locate and drill one hole instead of finding the position for 3 holes and drilling and putting 3 hooks in the ceiling. Okay, I've put together a harness with string, 3 lengths coming down to hooks on each end. Let's hang it up. There we go. Looks pretty good. Oh yeah, that's cool. When the ring moves from side to side, when it swings, the rods with their inertia start to pivot kind of in contrast to the ring swinging behavior. Let's see, this guy doesn't want to balance. Let's adjust the counterweight a little bit. I'm quite happy with how long it lasts before it comes to rest. But there's still an issue I didn't realize until just now. So the issue is that these extensions that connect the springs to the rods are rigid. So we're back to leverage again. When one of these rods rotates to the left or to the right, it really extends the spring, thanks to this extension remaining rigid and perpendicular to the rod. So what you can see is a freedom to move in the up or down direction of any of these, but much less freedom to move left or right. So it's not quite as balanced as I'd like it. It seems obvious now, but didn't occur to me at the time when I was trying to save a little effort by reusing these short springs. This was the simplest way I could think of to make an extender. So what I really need is for the extender to be able to pivot when it hits the rod, or to use longer springs that can reach all the way to the rod and hook in there. Okay, to remedy the problem of too much leverage, I've gone and made some modifications to the pieces of the prototype. So here I've shortened the attachment points where the springs connect to the rods. And to compensate for that, I've made extenders so that the springs can span the gap between each rod. Okay, look at that. It's working. Not bad. Let's hang it up. All right. I'm pretty happy with this prototype.